Welcome back to Radio NIGP. Thank you so much for joining us again today. My name is Bobby Tolston, and I'd like to send to you my heartfelt season greetings from the staff here at Radio NIGP. Today's segment will feature interviews from across North America, virtually of course, by our staff. We've interviewed pioneers who've paved the way for the membership here at NIGP. So stick around and enjoy these wonderful interviews that have been prepared for you. Season's greetings, and we look forward to seeing you back here again next year. Take care, and once again, thank you for joining us.
Hello, NIGP colleagues. This is David Nash with Radio NIGP, and I'm here today with Kirk Buffington, who is formerly the purchasing director with the city of Fort Lauderdale, with whom I worked for 10 years. Kirk, could you give us a little background on your procurement experience and what you did when you were in procurement?
Sure. Thank you, Dave, and it's a pleasure to be here with everybody on Radio NIGP. Most of my career was at the city of Fort Lauderdale. I went to work for them in 1996 as a senior procurement specialist, promoted up through the ranks, director of procurement services for several years, and then director of finance. And I retired in June of 2019 as the director of finance with responsibility for procurement and several other accounting financial divisions within the city. Prior to that, I spent time with the Orange County School Board, which was one of my first public procurement jobs. Also some time with the Osceola County Board of County Commissioners. And my very first job out of college with Walt Disney World also had some public procurement experience in it, also running the receiving shop over at Epcot Center. Outside of the actual work experience, I spent a lot of time on the board of directors. I was elected as Florida's representative to the NIGP Board of Directors in 2002, and extremely humbled when I was elected president of NIGP in 2008, 2009. And that was, I still believe today, is the highlight of my career and public experience, was serving as the NIGP president.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keith Blatz, and I'm happy to be here with you today. And I'm excited to bring you a few moments of perspective from one of our vintage leaders in the public procurement profession. Today, I'm honored to be speaking to a good friend, Ms. Jenny Reddy, CPPO, CPPB, who is the retired procurement director for the state of Colorado Department of Transportation. And she's also well known as one of our best known former NIGP instructors. More importantly, many of us that know her well know her as Mother. And Jenny's the recipient of the 2015 NIGP Distinguished Service Award. And today she's going to provide us with her unique insights into the public procurement profession. So welcome, Mother.
Thank you, Keith. I'm just thrilled to be here. I miss everyone so much. I think about you every day. Still doing what I used to do, but probably not as consistent as I was traveling and teaching and traveling and teaching. I don't know where the program's gone since I left.
I started there in November of '99, and I left 2 months shy of 19 years. So I was there a long time. But I met so many wonderful people. It was a wonderful place to be. And we saw many good things happen. And even now, when we talk about the future and when you do something to hope there'll be benefits, I think it was you who taught me about the tree, and you plant a tree and it grows. All the things we did in those 19 years have grown into many, many things that we had no idea that would happen.
I worked for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, for 40 years, and I retired as the director of purchasing. Now, my affiliation with NIGP started in 1979 when my city manager asked me if I would develop a purchasing department for the city. Well, I quickly realized that NIGP held the key to the education and the contacts that I was going to need to make this request become a reality. But throughout my career, I publicized and promoted public procurement because it was near and dear to my heart. And I did that on a local, regional, state, and national level. And I was very fortunate to become associated with NIGP and honored to serve on many committees and on their board of directors.
Today, I'm honored to be speaking to Mr. Fred Marks, CPPO, VPO, who started his procurement career in 1965 in the private sector and is retired procurement official from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, where he served from 1972 through 1996 as a supervising buyer, and after that, served as director of material management at Northern Virginia Community College from 1996 to 99. Fred was also a well-known NIGP instructor for many years following his retirement. And many of you may also remember Fred from his many articles on the back page of Government Procurement magazine, where he was the featured columnist from April 2006 to May 2013. And Fred is also the recipient of the 2005 NIGP Distinguished Service Award.
I got into public procurement. I think you're probably a roundabout way that everybody else gets into public procurement. I was in the private sector, mainly in the furniture industry, doing different types of procurement. And my parents were government employees and had let me know about a director of purchasing position open at the county, and kept on suggesting that I apply for it, that I'm qualified. At the time, I really didn't want to work for the government. That's what my parents did. But I guess to satisfy my mother, I went ahead and put an application in, and several months after that, I was interviewed, and several months went by, and I was eventually offered the job. And so I started 27 and a half years ago at Rockland County as the director of purchasing, and I'm 27 and a half years at the same agency in the same position.
Okay, I'm Linda Cummings. I started with Palm Beach County in the engineering, doing construction contracting, and then went into the purchasing department. Then I went to work for the city of Boca Raton, city of Green Acres, and I retired from the town of Palm Beach. I have an MBA from Nova Southeastern University. I was a charter member of the Southeast chapter of NIGP here in South Florida, and served on many committees and different officers, including presidency.
Hi, I'm Dick Cummings. I'm Linda's other half. I came from West Virginia, where I was director of purchasing for the state of West Virginia, and came to Broward County a few years later, about 20, and worked for Broward County as director of purchasing there. Then I ended my career in Sunrise for about 5 years before I retired. I hold a master's degree from West Virginia University. I've taught college at University of Charleston and FAU in Florida. I've been in professional organizations all my career. I was on the board of the executive committee, was the board of directors of NASPO. I was on the board for NIGP, served as president of NIGP. I'm an Albert Hall recipient, a fellow of NIGP. I also was instrumental in starting 2 chapters of NIGP, one in Florida and one in West Virginia. And I still like to keep my eye on what's going on in both states.
If I may, I have a few other questions.
Okay.
what our audience is interested in hearing about. You ready?
Yep, that's my name.
I know it is. Yeah. Number one, what do you believe was the biggest change in public procurement that occurred between the time that you started at the state of Colorado and the time you left?
The computer.
Computer.
The computer was the thing that put everybody on a spin, everybody on rethinking how it's going to process, everybody for having to adjust their mind and their process to get this system up and running. It was marvelous, but it was also frightening to a legend, as you called me, or whatever you called me. The computer was the biggest, most horrendous kick in the panty you can have had in procurement. It took our process and it was made in half the time, half the cost, half everything. And I respected it, but I hated it also because it was beyond anything my little pea brain ever had to deal with. So my biggest thing was just to remember to have it plugged in when you start. And then if it didn't work, I called somebody. So that would be the biggest change.
Well, it was automation, pure and simple. When I was first hired to work for the city of Johnson City, I was in the city manager's office. Now, the city manager, by charter of our city, is the purchasing agent. And so, therefore, one of my jobs was to type purchase orders. Now, this purchase order was a 5-part form with each page layered with a sheet of carbon paper. So every purchase order that I typed in big letters, it said confirmation, because we needed to pay invoices. So every invoice needed a purchase order number in order for it to be paid. Now, we were paying after we had the goods delivered and after the services were rendered. So fast forward to 2005 when I retired, and everything was automated. Now then, the purchase orders were sent electronically prior to the goods being received and prior to the services being rendered. So for me, that's the greatest change that's been made.
It's a good question. I don't think that our way of thinking has changed all that much. We've got new people who are our supervisors who have different training than our older supervisors. And I mean the people whose boxes are above ours in the table of organization. But I think the biggest change is technology. When the Trade Center was bombed in '93, we thought fax machines were going to be our saving grace. Nowadays, people look at the technology and people say, geez, how'd you get along with just using them? You know, we have computers now, we have instantaneous communication, but it's technology that drives us. I mean, we still talk about transparency and we talk about bid limits and we talk about delegated authority and evaluations. But it's technology that drives us now.
Sure, I think there's been a lot of good changes. When I started in county government, we basically had, no ERP systems or purchasing systems. My purchasing system only recorded the amount on the PO, and if you wanted to look online in the system, you couldn't see what was bought. You had to go get the paper copy. So technology has certainly progressed, and it's probably the number one item that people point to. There's been a positive change in public procurement in terms of the ability to do electronic bidding, proposal evaluation, a whole bunch of items that make us more productive. So that certainly has been a big change. The other thing that's been very helpful is the increase of cooperative contracts and national cooperative contracts. So we have a lot more options to go to than just our own state contracts to look at, or doing a solicitation ourselves. We now have a host of national cooperative contracts that are out there that can be researched to see if they're, best interest of our organization to go ahead and use them. And then the last thing that I think that has changed a lot is that I think politics has become less involved in public procurement. And certainly, there's always those few cases every year where, to the contrary, you see politics can still rear its ugly head in terms of public procurement. But I think overall, politicians have realized that public procurement needs to be an independent function. And there is less politics involved in it today than there was 20 years ago.
Well, I think the biggest change that I saw was the computerization of the purchasing process, and also the reports and the information that you can gain through the computers. Also the internet, where you're able to gain more information about the about the products that you're buying or the services, and maybe in other contracts that are available through other organizations. And also that when you use the computer in your office, you can get more information about the commodities that you used and the services that you're buying.
From the time I started in public purchasing, there's been many changes. Basically, when I started, it was largely a clerical function. Where I was at that time, there had been scandals, and the emphasis was follow the rules, follow the law, and everything else will take care of itself. Today, we have customers that we're trying to help. We have gone through many changes. We've gone through the management flavor of the month, from zero-based budgeting to goals and objectives. You have to have measurements for everything. But the same thing applies now. You have to follow all of the laws. You have to have honesty and integrity, and you have to be modern in what you're doing in your analytics, your work with other contracts, and help to the agencies. So it's been a vast change in the years that I practiced purchasing.
What would you think would be the most important lesson that you learned during your career that you'd want to pass along to current public procurement professionals based on your career at the state of Colorado?
In the career and in my real life as a purchasing agent and a speaker, know your audience. Know who is in your audience. I can recall many, many times going around the room and asking questions, and I would get these out of the basket questions that I couldn't possibly answer. And I found out I had 6 attorneys general sitting in my class. And here I thought they were purchasing agents, and they weren't really. They were just trying to find out what it is to spend money that was from Medicare. And that's what they wanted to know. And at that point, I had no idea what they were talking about, and not even anything knowing that we bought stuff from Medicare. So knowing your audience is really important. And if I had known, I could have done something better. I sort of stumbled through it and apologized. I didn't know. And I suggested they go to their own writings to see what to do.
Okay.
That was my most important thing that it hit me right between the eyes that I didn't know that I was teaching attorneys in a ganged up on me. That's all right.
Well, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my goodness, I learned so many. I learned that public procurement professionals are hungry to learn. They want to learn from each other. They want to learn from experts. They want to learn from the community they represent. They're hungry, and they were hungry, and still are, I would imagine, to learn from scholars and from a book and from a webinar, from an online class. The idea that they could do their job, even though they do their job well, that they could do so much more. The profession changed my life. I never knew of the work that was being done, and then to be able to understand how that translates into ethics and equal opportunity and equity for the buying community. Yeah, it was transforming.
One thing I remember about your career is that you served as a railroad buyer for the Port Authority for a while, and you had, and I understand you had a very, very unique international procurement experience with the particular procurement that you were involved with. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that experience and how it differed from other procurements that you regularly made, both procedurally and, more importantly, culturally.
Culturally was a big problem. What had happened was at the Port Authority, we have a 13-mile railroad that goes from New York to New Jersey. It's called PATH, Port Authority Trans-Hudson. And the Board of Commissioners decided to buy new rail cars, and I had a $100 million contract in my briefcase waiting for my signature, and they sent a team of negotiators over to do the final negotiations. I was the leader of that team, and my boss, brilliant man, said, "You better learn how to negotiate with the Japanese. They do it differently than we do." So they sent me to a couple of courses. I read a bunch of books and flew over to Tokyo. I absolutely know 2 words in Japanese. Both of them were pleased and thank you. But the biggest problem I had culturally was that they wanted to provide a translator to us and sit in our meetings. And I thought to myself, this isn't good. I don't want people listening into our private conversations. So I called the American Embassy, and they sent over a translator for us. It's complete. When you're in a culture where you don't speak the language, you can't read the signs, you don't know what's going on around you, you have to be led everywhere. You don't have the feeling of comfort you would normally have. We were completely off base with the timing of everything, only because Japan is, I think, a day and a half different than we are. I'm on the East Coast of New York. It was a draining experience. Even the way they handle business cards. If Keith and I were meeting for the first time, we'd just hand each other a business card, one-handed. The Japanese don't do that. They put it in both palms of their hands, and they actually present it to you. And there are more things you can do wrong than you can do right if you don't know the cultural landscape. We did get it done. My manager said to me, actually what he said to me was, "Don't screw up," but you're going to have to cut that out. It was a learning experience all around.
I have to say that the value of networking, because sometimes you can feel like that you're the only person that has ever seen this type of solicitation, when in reality, you don't have to reinvent that wheel. You can pick up the phone or shoot an email to someone, and I guarantee you that someone will respond, and you'll have some assistance in getting the job that you've been charged with done. A couple of things. Number one, I think certification is extremely important to procurement professionals and clerks in the procurement department, because not only it's difficult, it's a lot of studying and testing, but when you get certified, there is a personal satisfaction of achievement that is invaluable to you. And it also gives credibility to your agency to have a fully certified procurement staff. The other thing that I like to say to young purchasing folk is to get out there and join with your chapter, become active in promoting public procurement, get involved with national as you have, because that's an invaluable group of people that can be of great assistance. And I will say from personal experience that NIGP will be your biggest supporter, and they will always have your back.
Looking back on that, all that procurement experience that you've had, is there something in particular that you wish you would have known when you started out?
Dave, I've spent a lot of time since you sent me the questions thinking about this. And I think for me, I wish I'd had a better idea of how much I needed to understand the skill of leadership, not the academic side, not the side you hear in college, all the leadership theory, the management theory, but the skill to actually lead people. It's not something that comes out of a textbook. And I wish that I had somebody, as I came up the ladder, if you will, I wish I'd had somebody mentoring me, give me a little advice, how to lead people, how to get people to go in the right direction, instead of pushing people, lead people. And that was actually somebody said that to me as they were leaving the city, and I said, you need to learn to lead, not push. And I wish I had known that, because I think in my earlier years, I could have spent time learning that skill and developing that skill.
So if you had to, if there was something that you had to do over again, what would that be? I know that's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. I think I would have worked harder to make the profession represented on the academic level. It was always floundering under the surface. It got stuck in day-to-day operations. But the challenge available to bring people into the procurement community that bring an academic background and scholarly research, I think that's just one of the areas that we could have done so much better in.
Thinking back to how you dealt with public procurement professionals, would you do anything differently?
Well, I think we always go back, and hindsight is always easier than vision. But there were things that we did that laid the groundwork for the future that we didn't know. Look at webinars. Oh my gosh. The first webinar we had in somebody's little tiny office And Rick Grimm was there, and I was there, and the staff person was there, and the rest of the staff was in the conference room, and nobody was breathing. It was just like, this will never work. What are we going to do? What if it fails? And it didn't.
Yeah.
It was the beginning. And to think that that was the root, here we're back to roots, that was the root of online learning. And
Absolutely right.
It's almost unimaginable. And how we didn't trust ourselves and we didn't believe this was the future. And now we'll go back to the pandemic, which forced us, or the community rather, to find different ways to deliver education. And the 20 years in between, leaps and bounds were made.
Well, I would say that it takes dedication to your profession and to put in the time and the effort to doing an excellent job. But the biggest lesson is to maintain your ethics at the highest level so that you're respected by those that you work with, as well as the vendor contractor communities, as being highly trustworthy. Having a reputation for being a professional allows contractors or someone to be able to contact you to pass on information where some of the ethics have been compromised.
I think I would concur in that honesty and integrity are the main thing that go into public purchasing. And this is followed throughout my career. I always had the mantra that I'm not going to jail for anybody. And that served me well. We need to do the best we can to understand what we're buying, to know that it's not just low bid, that we have to analyze everything, to see what is the best buy for us, but above all, to make sure that we're honest and then have the integrity that everybody will agree and look up to us.
Sure, I guess the main thing I wish I would have known, certainly my first couple of years at the county were a learning experience and learning public procurement, but also learning a lot of different categories that I had no experience with. I wish I would have known how helpful public procurement practitioners are to helping out their fellow practitioners. And instead of trying to struggle and recreate the wheel yourself, reach out to those around you in surrounding jurisdictions who may have experience in what you're looking to do. One of the things I've learned is that as a public procurement practitioner, you're probably not going to be asked to procure anything or do anything that someone else hasn't already done somewhere in the country. And by using our listservs and things of that nature, we certainly have the tools to reach out and get a lot of information that can help us.
Okay, so if you could do it all over again, start back in the beginning, would you still choose to work in public procurement as a profession? And why or why not?
Yes, I would. It's given me a great deal of satisfaction to be involved in contributing to the success of projects, to see a road built or a building gone up, and to know that you've provided the supplies to the maintenance people to maintain the buildings, the pipelines and the water plants. It gives you a great deal of satisfaction. Just looking out and seeing the street lights and the agency vehicles and the equipment, it's great to know that you were a part of the procurement process, no matter how small or how big it was.
I would definitely go back into public purchasing. I like to see, especially large organizations, run smoothly, and they cannot without a smooth procurement system. Like I said early on, it was just follow the rules. But now we need to have a system in place that will help everybody, that will help them do their job. because we're not only a leader, but we serve our agencies, and they cannot be successful without a smooth system that we're responsible for implementing.
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want a job where every day is different and every day gives you an opportunity to learn something that you didn't know the day before? Now, what would really be wonderful is if I could start today with the knowledge that I have and the changes in the electronic sphere that we live in. And so, yes, so just where do I sign up?
I'm sure we can find a place for you.
But no, it has been a great ride for me, and I've had a wonderful career. I'm enjoying retirement very, very much, but I will say that I do miss the fun that I had in my job, because it was just a great experience. And I am so very proud of you and of all of my Tennessee folk that have stepped up and charged ahead with education and certification. And so, keep going. And as one of my favorite people, Lou Spangler, who was the executive director way back in the day, he always said, keep the faith.
Absolutely, positively. I would jump in with 2 feet and merrily go on my way. I would have taught forever and ever and ever and ever. And with the way it was playing out through the computer and the industry's amount of money they're going to put towards training, it made sense to use the computer rather than send somebody hither and yon to teach. But I feel strongly that we should have hands-on, in-person teaching continued. They get so much more information and how it looks to teach people who really are confused about the whole process. And you can kind of bring it down to what's real.
Yeah. Jenny, you were always a great teacher.
Well, thank you. I loved it.
Hello, friends. As the leaves continue to fall and the cold settles in, and yes, I recognize the degrees of cold vary dependent on where you are and your perspective, but you get the idea. This season reminds me to reflect on the year almost gone by. All of the plans that we planted in the spring took root in the summer, and as the year ends, we're harvesting the fruits of our labor in preparation for winter or in the throes of winter. In business and government, it may not come naturally for us to be intentional and grateful. There's always a rush to push more through the system or to solve a problem. In our hurry, we may forget to appreciate the people that are creating our organization's success. When is the last time you acknowledged the contributions of your coworkers? Might want to think about that. During a leadership training event I attended, we were encouraged to write words of gratitude to each other and place it in a gratitude bag. Thinking about each person's unique contribution to the whole was insightful, calling out all the attributes that make them special. Receiving the compliments in your bag of gratitude was a gift that left you feeling loved and appreciated. The whole exercise took less than 10 minutes, but all these months later, it's still memorable. What better gift than to know your teammates appreciate you? Feel free to try this with your team as well. But bless our hearts, transitions, change, growth, and progress are hard for individuals and organizations alike. We need to meet each individual where they are on their journey. Gratitude will actually inspire others to keep up the good work, empowering them to go that extra mile. By refreshing or restoring the respect and kindness in our organizations, we ourselves will be better humans to the outside world. Our customers will feel the appreciation we have for our fellow teammates. Our communities will experience our gestures of kindness and support. This time of year truly brings out the best in everyone. People are more giving and thoughtful to those that are less fortunate. We experience the joy of gift giving and intentional time together. The challenge to myself, and the one that I'm offering to you today, is to capture that same spirit that abounds in this season and continue to carry that all the way through 2022. Take the time to think about all those people who make your holiday celebrations possible. Be grateful for the farmers and the truck drivers delivering your turkey, your ham, your vegetables to the grocery store. And don't forget our manufacturers who produce the stove we cook on or the servingware that we use, right? But after each day of celebration is done, say thanks for everyone who took part in creating a memory that you and your family will hold dear for years to come. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, friends. Stay well.
Jenny, I want to thank you again so much for sharing your time and professional insights with us, and definitely appreciate your knowledge and all the contributions you've made to the profession. And just thank you for being you.
Thank you, Keith, for thinking of me and for including me. I feel honored and I feel so homesick now. I just want to get my suitcase and travel and go teach.
Well, I certainly appreciate you sitting with us today and answering these questions. And on behalf of NIGP, I certainly thank you for the contributions you've made, especially being president of a chapter and being president nationally.
Anything else that you would like to add?
Only that it's wonderful. Well, first of all, it's wonderful to see you. And it's wonderful to see how the community is growing. And I'm so grateful that you all still have the opportunity to get together now again.
Yes.
It's just that too in itself, that network, that face-to-face, that handshake makes all the difference in the world.
And I really want to thank you so much for sharing your time and professional insight with us today, Fred. We appreciate that knowledge and all your contributions to the profession.
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a lot of fun being a buyer.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson to learn for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. You can have a lot of fun as long as you do things the right way, and you're never going to be sure whether you do things the right way or not.
Well, professionalism helps, and Fred, you're a consummate professional. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Keith. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Well, Jane, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's so good to hear about your career, and I appreciate you sharing some of your legacy with us of your history with public procurement.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it. It's great to see you, Penny.
Thank you, Jane. You too.
Well, I appreciate you talking with us today, and we certainly appreciate the legacy and respect the legacy that you've left in public procurement. So, again, I thank you for taking the time to spend with us here on Radio NIGP. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
Dick, Linda, I want to thank you very much today for sharing your time and perspective with us. We definitely appreciate and respect the great legacy that the two of you have brought to the profession, and want to say thank you on behalf of Radio NIGP.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.